Protest, riot, I don't care. Fuck that cop. Flip that motherfucker.
That's required.
Required.
It's a ninth grade novel. Ninth grade, so we're talking a 14-year-old. It's in one of our elementary schools, and it just has the F word all over the place. Blowjobs, F you asshole. 70% of the kids are not meeting reading standards.
Well, at least they can read fuck you asshole.
Include one sentence at the end of the paragraph excluding pedophilia or minor attracted persons as a future sexual identity, and they refuse to do it. To intentionally infect someone with HIV is no longer a felony. One tells kids, it says, you can change your pronouns from he to she or from she to he, talking about gender fluidity. You can use new ones like Z or create your own, like tree.
Do they know that the word tree already exists? It's like a plant, a big one. But if I call them a tool, they're gonna get insulted, right? You can be a tree, but not a tool. Why not?
Right.
Maybe that's gender. Okay, so let me properly introduce you once again. So Brenda Lebsack has been in the public education for 25 years. She has a Bachelor of Science in Human Services from Cal State Fullerton University, a teaching credential from San Jose State University, Master's in Special Education from Chapman University, California, and an adopted PE authorization from Azusa Pacific University. Brenda has taught alternative education, elementary education, middle school and high school special education, and is currently teaching no more, right? You're not teaching.
Yeah, I retired in December.
She was elected as a school board member for Orange Unified School District from 2016 to 2020 and in 2024, correct?
In 2024, I was elected for Santa Ana Unified.
Santa Ana, yes. She coached girls high school soccer and field hockey. Brenda has been married to Dr. Mark Lebsack for 34 plus years, and they have grown two children, a son-in-law and one grandchild. Before going into education, Brenda was a peace officer for the Orange County Probation Department and helped write the AIDS prevention curriculum. Mrs. Lebsack is a woman of God. Welcome to the show once again.
Thank you, Apollo.
So the last time we spoke, that was, I want to say, October 2024. And a few things have changed. So obviously, Trump is in the office right now. And you were elected as Santa Ana School Board member.
Yes.
You're one of 5.
December 2024.
Correct. Tell me what has changed since you got elected and since Trump got into the office. Has anything changed in the last 8 to 9 months in the education sphere?
Well, in California, not much has changed because even though there's been a lot of executive orders, it's not really impacting California school districts. At least it's not impacting mine. And so I just try to tell people, don't have a false sense of security that those executive orders mean that California is following them, because our state laws contradict executive orders, and we're being told by legal counsel to go with state law.
So Governor of California has more power than President Trump at the moment in California?
It appears so.
Tell me about the job. You're a school member now. How does your day look like? What do you do? Because the last time we spoke on the phone, you said you had a meeting till 12:30 a.m. in the morning?
Our meetings do tend to go till about midnight.
How so? What do you do there? How is it possible to go till midnight?
Because we have a lot of controversial issues going on. So recently, this past week, over 260 teachers and counselors were laid off because of declining enrollment. And over 70% of the school districts in the state of California have declining enrollment. Our school district is not unique to that. It's just that my school district in Santa Ana, during the COVID, because we got so much extra funding as everyone else did, decided to hire a lot more counselors because we have a lot of community schools. So when you're declining enrollment and then when those funds run out, then you have a huge shortfall of budget. So we had that. We had a lot of lawsuits as well. So we had a lot of public comments, and that can take up to over 2 hours of people just showing up and giving their opinions and, disgruntled because we had anti-Semitic lawsuits about our ethnic studies program, Brown Act violations, and we've had a lot of situations.
So someone is suing School board.
Yes, our district was sued by 3 Jewish organizations.
For what?
Saying that our ethnic studies was anti-Semitic and was also in violation of the Brown Act and was very biased.
Let's start from the beginning. How did you say ethnic study?
Yes.
What is that?
So ethnic studies is supposed to be where many cultures are studied, and whether it be Hispanic or African American or Asian, Pacific Islander, different cultures and different ethnicities and places of origin.
And you were sued for what? By Jewish...
Organization, yeah.
You were sued for what?
Like the Anti-Defamation League, ADL.
What exactly
ADL.
did you do?
Well, there's a lot of articles out there about it because we made national news, because the lawyers did a lot of public records requests, and they tried to find out, first of all, we had 2 board members that were meeting behind closed doors, and they were organizing this ethnic studies while a lot of times during COVID, and you're supposed to do a lot of these things in public, so there's transparency. But there were a lot of decisions being made without public input. And what happened is the person that I replaced, actually, that I ran against, he was the chairman of the ethnic studies for Long Beach State University and also worked for Chicano Studies, which I believe he still is. And so he was really pushing ethnic studies into our school district, which we have like 15 ethnic studies classes, such as English, history, art, which they call artivism, such as like activism. Yeah. So we have it from junior high through high school. And so we're going like way above and beyond what's even mandated, since there's really only one class mandated, and that's not even funded, so you can't really legally mandate it. But the kind of things where the Jewish organizations became alerted is that they saw that they uncovered text messages that said, between the committee members, that said, well, let's try to prevent the Jewish community from coming out to oppose this curriculum by holding our meetings during their like Passover or during their holidays. And then they used really racial slurs against Jews. Yes.
Two board members were texting each other.
Some people were staff members, not necessarily.
And someone leaked the messages.
Yes, and there were 2 board members also part of this. They are no longer on our board, but it was a real big embarrassment to our school district.
I got you. So school board consists of 5 school board members, right? And 1 president is being elected of one of those 5, correct?
Yes, some school boards are 7, but mine is 5.
How does the president get elected?
The president is elected by the board members.
So you elected the president?
No. Well, I don't remember how I voted on that. I probably did vote yes.
Who's the president of your school district?
His name is Hector Bustos. He's about 24 years old.
Excuse me?
He's about, we have, the majority of our board members are in their mid-20s, and they're not parents.
What do they know about teaching, education, kids?
They know a lot about community organization and activism, political activism. Our president, I think, graduated from the University of San Francisco for political science and community organizing.
So why is he a school member right now? What does he want to do?
Well, according to him, I mean, he is stated from the dais that his kind of claim to fame is that he is the first out gay person as an elected official of our city. So he's, said
That's
that.
an accomplishment.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, he's very proud of that, and he has a LGBT flag in front of him on the dais, a small one.
So sexual preference is an achievement right now?
Yes, well, according to the FAIR Act, we have a law that states, we have to, in our history books and in a lot of our curriculum, we talk about the contributions of the LGBTQ community. And so that's why I think he platforms that accomplishment.
But again, he was voted in. Someone elected him.
No, he actually ran unopposed.
How can you run unopposed?
When the community is asleep and nobody runs for office.
Oh, you mean so you had another candidate, but he wasn't that popular, so they just
No, he
casted a
was
vote
the
for-
only person on the ballot. There was nobody running against him, so there was only one option. So he would have won either way.
That's kind of a cheating, no?
It's not cheating, it's just nobody else ran. So he ran unopposed. Nobody ran against him.
So how do you get those another candidates just like you had? Who are those candidates? Why you ran against somebody and he ran against nobody?
Because people have to put in their name to the voters registration and say that they want to run for that office. So that's why we're trying to get a lot more people in there. My community is waking up, seeing that he ran unopposed, and yet he claims to represent our community. But really, I think our community is very, like, we're about 98% Hispanic, and there's many undocumented in our community, a lot of people that don't speak English. So a lot of times they might not be involved in the voting process. But I think with the things that are going on right now, they're really starting to pay attention.
But he's 24 years old. When I was 24, I was watching the Avengers and the Iron Man. That's all I knew, right?
Well, they're very well trained. And they get trained in college, and then they get trained through like political groups that help them out.
Okay, so if I
I would
ask,
say the Democratic Party.
if I asked you, name me top 3 issues right now in your school district, what would be those?
Well, a top one would be, of course, the layoffs. That's a big one. Teacher and counselor layoffs. Another one would be our lawsuits, which we just settled a lawsuit with the 3 Jewish organizations for ethnic studies. But now we have a huge lawsuit with, it's called the Orange County School of the Arts. It's probably one of the most popular, well-known charter schools in Southern California, at least, maybe this whole state of California. And so we're in a big lawsuit with them right now.
Because of what?
Well, our district is saying that they didn't pay their fair share of special education fees, but it's kind of a complicated issue. So, I'm pretty much siding with the charter school because of the way this was handled, and it started in 2019.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's a big deal. And
So you've mentioned that you've settled 2 lawsuits with Jewish organizations, so it means you paid off?
we did one lawsuit with the Jewish organization, and they did settle, yes. They did settle, and they agreed to hold off on, remove 2 of those most egregious ethnic studies classes that was after the liberated ethnic studies model. And so they are going back to the table and say they're trying to start over in implementing that.
So it wasn't about the money. There was no money settlement achieved, or there was?
There were a lot of lawyer fees. No, I can't remember, to be honest. I don't think there was.
But it cost a lot of money for the school district, right?
Yes. It always costs. Lawyers are expensive.
Give me an example, like hundreds of thousands of dollars?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
But lots of money.
I think it was like $57,000.
Okay, I got it.
I think $57,000. I've been told with the ethnic studies, with the OSHA one, that it's been in the millions because it's gone on for so long.
Since 2019.
Yes.
So whose money is this?
This is taxpayer money paying for these lawsuits, yes. But, there's so many lawsuits because there's also a lot of sexual misconduct lawsuits, like against teachers who are, like, we've had a few this year with a basketball coach being with a female student. We've had one with a female music teacher that was with a 17-year-old boy.
So the basketball teacher was a male?
Yes, a
How
male.
How old was he?
I don't know.
And he was having an affair or having sex with the student?
With a student.
And it's not a felony?
I would think it should be, but we do have Senate Bill 145. But, Senate Bill 145 says there can be a 10-year difference. So a 14-year-old and 24-year-old can have consensual sex, whether it be gay sex or heterosexual sex. It doesn't matter. But it's different when you're a teacher or you're school personnel because you have those ethic codes to abide by.
So, for instance, if you're a psychiatrist, you can have sex with your clients.
Correct.
Because you have an influence over them.
Right.
If you're a teacher, you have the same thing. You can influence your students.
Right. Right.
Okay, so
what is that called? Quid pro quo? Yes.
So layoffs, lawsuits, and the third one issue?
We also have the superintendent just retired, so we have to find a new superintendent over the summer, and that's a big deal too.
How are you going to select a superintendent? You're going to vote for someone?
Right now, we're just getting input from the community, like surveys and that kind of thing, and then we will either go through a vetting process or we might appoint somebody from within.
Okay, so...
And I do want to mention that when I'm speaking as a school board member, I'm only speaking on behalf of myself. I'm not speaking on behalf of my school district or on behalf of my board. I have to...
Disclaim.
That's my
correct.
disclaimer.
So, let's say someone is watching from a site, from a European country, for instance, right? And they know all the egregious stuff that is going on with the kids, with the books. We're going to cover that. And they want to get some precautions. What would they have to look into their schools, maybe teacher associations, maybe parents meetings, maybe curricula of their kids, to not get involved and not get into that mess that California is in right now? How did it all start here in California, so people could recognize the patterns?
That's a great question. I think, first of all, it started with the laws and the frameworks. So a framework is, well, I think it started with the law first because we had the California Healthy Youth Act that was passed in 2015 and then implemented in 2016, which was saying that it required sex ed to be taught starting in 7th grade, which we already had sex ed, but it changed the landscape of sex ed, and then it said it could be taught as young as kindergarten. But the landscape that changed was adding all of the gender ideology and all the sexual orientations into that. And what it did is it said, well, if you want to opt out of sex ed or HIV prevention, you can, but the law said you cannot opt out of gender identity or sexual orientation teachings because they lumped that not under sex ed, but under anti-bullying, under non-discrimination, and so basically made it to where for any grade level, those things and those ideas could be taught really at any grade level.
That was Assembly Bill or Senate Bill?
Assembly Bill 329.
Who started it?
Shelley Weber.
Who is she?
She was a, trying to think of what her position is now. She might be the secretary of the state of California. But at that time, she was an assembly person representing San Diego.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So it all started with the law, with the first one. Then what followed?
Well, I want to just back up for a second with that law because when it started getting implemented when I was a board member in Orange, and I started seeing the curriculum for myself and seeing all these genders based on feelings and all these sexualities, ones that I had never heard of, like pansexuality, abrosexuality, multisexuality. I'm like, boy, that's way beyond even gay, lesbian, bi. Like, I'd never heard of all these sexualities. And I asked the ACLU, because I started to put the brakes on this implementation as a board member, saying, I don't think the parents know really what this new sex ed is and what it entails. And when I started putting on the brakes on with the superintendent, then the ACLU came out to our school district, one of the lawyers, and said that basically threatened us with a lawsuit and said that they quoted saying 89% of the parents in the state of California approve of this curriculum. How
do they know that? Did they do a polling?
Well, that's what I asked. And they quoted a survey and a study from UC Berkeley, so that was done in 2007. So I went to UC Berkeley and I contacted the professor, who is Dr. Norman Constantine, and I asked him if I could see his study and his survey. And when I looked at the survey, there was not one question about gender identity. There was not one question about anal sex.
So ACLU lied?
Absolutely. They misrepresented parents. And the ACLU is who lobbied to the legislators to pass AB 329, the California Healthy Youth Act. So this whole law that they passed back in 2015 is built on a foundation of lies and misrepresentation.
But even if they did this surveying, this polling in UC Berkeley, it doesn't represent it doesn't represent all the parents from California, right? It's a very liberal university. You shouldn't do surveys in a very red or very blue counties or places.
Right. Well, they tried to make it, I mean, you'll have to, it's been a while since I've read the survey, but of course, to make it valid and reliable, they have to pick a large sampling and make it random and dispersed. So they go into detail on how they had a large sampling, and I wouldn't say it was, it was a relevant survey, but it did not measure what they were trying to promote.
I got you. So once you noticed this in the curriculum, you contacted and you were trying to stop it. ACLU said, don't do it, we're going to sue you. What happened next?
Well, then I just said, well, I need to communicate and inform my community because I can't do this on my own. It's got to come from the bottom up. So I started speaking in churches. I started speaking in parent groups. I started showing them. The other thing I did is I started looking at a lot of the resources that the California Department of Ed was recommending to kids, and without parents really seeing it ahead of time, because it's harder for parents if it's not like hard copies. It's not a textbook. It's a lot harder for parents to understand or know what kind of links are being given through these curriculums, right? So one I saw was Advocates for Youth, and when I started looking at this one that was from the California Department of Ed, I noticed that the Muslim community was being targeted as far as their kids, and I started reading the curriculum and the links saying, I'm Muslim, but I'm a different gender. I'm Muslim, but I'm a different sexuality. And they had it in Arabic and in English, and when I read it, it said that the Islamic prophets and the Quran affirms these various genders and sexualities. And when I saw that, I was in shock.
But that's a lie.
I mean, it's a bold-faced lie. And I thought, I'm just in shock because I'm not a Muslim, but I know they really crossed a sacred line here.
Correct.
Of saying this to Muslim students. And so I felt, I have Muslim constituents. So I thought I really need to let them know. So I made an appointment to go see Dr. Siddiqui, who is also a Chapman University adjunct professor and an imam at one of the largest mosques in my area. And I made an appointment with him and showed him some of these things that were going on. And of course, he was very disturbed. And that's how I started talking in mosques and to the Muslim community about these things.
But since 2015 to 2016, it got twice, 5 times, 10 times more in the curricula, right?
Yes.
Let's go through a few examples.
One thing, too, is besides the law itself, there's something called the frameworks, and that comes from the State Board of Education. And what they do is they have a blueprint that is passed on the state level that then is used as a guidance for publishers and textbook writers. So as a PE teacher, I started looking at the health framework. I wanted to see, what are they guiding and directing us to how to teach health. And I saw a particular...
The framework is like a request, right?
Yeah, it's a recommendation. And so we have like the state standards that say, you really have to, this is the skeleton of what needs to be taught to students at different grade levels. And then you have a framework that builds out the body of the skeleton, where it's saying this is what the state recommends in your curriculum.
So if you're an author, you can read the framework, you can write a book on this topic.
Yes, for let's say 5th grade health book.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So what I noticed in the framework, there was a lot of things I noticed that I'd been a teacher since 1990, and I'd never seen these things in our frameworks before. Here's one particular paragraph that's in the health framework, and it's also in the ethnic studies framework.
Till this day?
Yes, that came few years later. The health framework came out in 2018, and it said, the usage of LGBTQ+ throughout this document is intended to represent an inclusive and ever-changing spectrum of understanding of identities. Historically, the acronym included lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender, but has continued to expand to include gender, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, allies, and alternative identities. And in parentheses, it says LGBTQIAA, as well as expanding concepts that may fall under this umbrella term in the future. So basically, it's a blank check.
Mm-hmm.
And that plus could be anything, and we don't even know what it is. So the California State Board of Education gave a 60-day window for the residents of California to give input on this 300-page plus document.
There's no way parents are going to read 300 plus.
No,
document.
but we had people that were reading it for parents and taking out the areas that were controversial, such as this. And there were a lot more besides this. But then me and many other people started going to churches and different places of worship and parent groups saying, you have 60 days to give your input. There's some concerning things in this framework.
Input, you mean taking a phone and calling and saying, I don't want to have this in my curriculum?
Input meaning to send an email and saying who they are, kind of going to the California Department of Ed link and giving input, or they could actually attend their meeting when they were going to vote on it and speak at the meeting. And we had busloads of people do that in 2018 who went and spoke at the meeting. But what I did is when I was speaking in Spanish churches, the Spanish pastor said, well, we have a lot of people that don't speak English. Can you please provide the document in Spanish? And I said, no problem. So I called the California Department of Ed and asked them for the link in Spanish, and they said they only provide it in English.
Oh, yeah, you've mentioned this.
Did I mention this last time? Yeah, so I think that's a big deal because they literally break their own rules, and it's very hypocritical.
They're so inclusive, but not that much, right? Not for these people.
They say they're all for immigrants and minorities and the marginalized, yet they actually discriminated and excluded the very people they say that they're trying to include and protect. So then I asked for my input. I asked the California Department of Ed to please include one sentence at the end of the paragraph excluding pedophilia or minor attracted persons as a future sexual identity, and they refused to do it. And I did this more than once, and to me that is just a huge red flag to say that there is how is this safe for kids if we cannot exclude pedophilia?
So LGBT, they're saying this is not just sexual preference. So they're confusing identity with sexual preference, because it says that in other identities, right? So my identity is not heterosexual, right? But someone can say my identity is I'm gay, or I'm lesbian, I'm trans, I'm bi, I'm something. It has nothing to do with an identity. They're trying to mess the kids' minds.
Well, I definitely agree with you that all of this is very, very confusing, and trying to bring in all of these identities that they say they should explore. And how are they going to explore it, a sexual identity? And they say, well, you could try pornography. So they really normalize pornography as a way to explore, to see whatever might turn you on.
But this is not an identity. This is an orientation. Why do they mix those things up? That's like the same thing that they mix up lesbians, gays, and bis with trans. They have nothing in common.
Yeah, they're wordsmithing. Using
Just to
these
get the
words.
community bigger and to call you a bigot when you oppose it. Because
Definitely.
if you oppose, for instance, if you oppose trans child, then they can say you that you're homophobic, because you speak against the LGBTQAI plus.
And really, mostly what I do is I just try to inform. I mean, when I ran for school board, part of the ed code is 51101, which says that parents deserve to be informed. And so I feel like no matter if the parent is agnostic or if they're gay parents, it doesn't matter. They need to be informed so that they can be the ones making the decisions for their children. But if we're deceiving parents and not giving them the full picture, how are we respecting them? So if we're going to truly be tolerant and inclusive, then that means including parents and allowing them to parent. But how can they know what they don't know?
But you did a lot of moves to stop that framework in 2018, but it still got passed.
It did get passed, and there was there were some things they took out, but they left this paragraph in there, and they had. I don't know if I mentioned before about spiritual abuse. Did I mention that? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
okay. That was another thing they had in the framework as well, the spiritual abuse.
Let's go through the literature, the books that you got in school libraries and in school curricula.
Sure. So, there was a lot of books, I think, during COVID where there was kind of a purging of a lot of books and the new books coming in. I can't say I know exactly where all these new books came from. A lot of them were from donations. I know the Human Rights Campaign, through their Welcoming Schools program, gives a lot of donations to schools to say it's for diversity, equity, and inclusion, which includes, of course, very obscene type of things. So this is one that it's called the Rainbow Parade. It's for it could be for ages 4 to 7-year-olds. Basically talking about Pride Month, which is the month of June. It has naked people in the parade, and then it has drag queens in it. It has men dressed in BDSM,
Correct.
bondage, leather, chains, sparsely dressed, and a little girl on the sideline about 6 years old being given trinkets and gifts by drag queens.
And it says, act up, fight back, fight AIDS. So if you want to fight AIDS, you don't do homosexual stuff, basically, right? Isn't it true?
Well, that's not what the book is saying. It's saying they're activists for
How are they fighting AIDS?
probably raising money and awareness.
Okay.
Yeah. On the back is all the schools, all the elementary schools that have this book in my district.
Elementary schools.
Yes, there's many. There's about 15.
Okay, what do you have else?
I didn't bring the book, but it's the book called The Hate You Give, and there's a movie about it, but this is a required reading book for all 9th graders, and it has a lot of F expletives in it. It has a lot of F the cops, F the police, and it uses the N-word. So and it has definitely parts in it about, disrespecting females and that kind of thing. And
What are
so
all
they
the
say
feminists?
that this is all about cultural relevance and that kids are more likely to read it because they feel it relates to them. And it's about, what they do. It's kind of the Rodney King situation.
What culture does
No.
promote the misogyny if they hate women and they call the women names?
I'm sorry, not Rodney King. I meant to say George Floyd.
George Floyd.
Situation, yeah.
Yeah. This is some bullshit. Fuck this.
Yeah. There's a lot of F words in it throughout the whole book.
Oh,
yeah.
wow. I mean, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines. And I want to say like 15 F words.
Yes.
Protest, riot, I don't care. Fuck that cop. Flip that motherfucker. This is recommended for...
That's required.
required for
It's a
for
9th
teenager.
grade novel. 9th grade. So we're talking a 14-year-old.
Condom or no condom, shit happens. I left his house pissed and horny. Fuckity, fuckity, 1, 2, 3, 4 F word. But you can't swear, you can't curse at school, right? You're gonna get penalized.
Right.
But you can.
Well, I mean, people do cuss at school, but yeah, we're recommending you not use profanity, but yet we're giving them reading materials that's filled with profanity.
It's
including the N-word, and we do this big thing about anti-bullying and not using racial slurs, and yet it's using the N-word even in the book. So I feel like it's a lot of speaking out of two sides of your mouth. It's like, well, don't do this, but here's all the examples of how to do it.
like 3 times, fuck the police.
Yeah.
Yeah,
a lot of fuck the police in there.
Okay.
Yeah. This is an interesting book called The Answers in the Pages that's in a lot of middle schools, even in some elementary. Well, yeah. But this is basically saying, I know that if you've spent your lives being told an identity is wrong or sinful or inappropriate, it's hard to wrap your mind around the fact that everything you've been told is bigotry. I grew up in this town, and I know my parents love me, but I also know that if this meeting, well, anyways, it's basically going on to say, you know, if you believe certain things, more traditional values,
bigotry.
according to, it could be the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, the Book of Mormon, the World Translation, which is Jehovah's Witnesses, then you're a bigot.
New York Times best-selling author.
Yes, New York Times best-selling. This is an interesting one, found at a lot of, it's called The Moon from Within. And I'll just read some excerpts. It says, our child has arrived at a new truth, born a boy energy into the body of a girl. They were known to worship at the temple of Zipili, the flower prince god who protected people of all gender identities. Her family in Mexico never understood her ways that she would leave being a man to be her true self, a woman. And yeah, you may bleed like a woman and you may move as a man. In the world, you have been made this way by the Creator.
Which one?
I don't know. It's very spiritual. Listen, I'm still trying to figure out where I'll end up, a boy, a girl, or both. I feel lucky to have this spiritual push to guide me. I just want my family to accept me. And it was okay because you're a Zakawish with boy and girl energies. It's more sacred stuff.
So it's basically a new age religion.
It's a type of religion that they're pushing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this one is this one summer, and it's in one of our elementary schools, and it just has the F word all over the place. Blowjobs, F you asshole, talking a lot about blowjobs.
So do you think those people that led these books into elementary schools, do you think they talk to their own kids of elementary school age the same way? Do they talk with them saying the F words, blowjobs, fuck you asshole?
Who, the teachers?
No, the ones who
parents.
push those books to be in the elementary school. Who's responsible for all this?
I'm trying to get down to the bottom of it, of who is responsible, but it looks to me like the board, before me, the board majority, they approved of a lot of these things. I haven't gotten down to the bottom of a lot of things. I have shared these things with the superintendent, with the associate superintendent, saying, these are in our schools, and we looked through we have a digital database, so we're able to actually write down all the schools that it's in and how many copies are in each school. And we're just trying to say, they say we don't want to ban books, we don't want to censor books, but to me the logic doesn't make sense because, okay, we have internet safety, we have safeguards on our internet through the Chromebook. Kids aren't supposed to just watch pornography during their classes, right? Because we have guardrails. And also, teachers can't just show X-rated movies in their classroom and say it's educational. Yet, yeah. But yet we have books that are X-rated, and apparently we can't censor books. I don't understand that. It's a double standard.
But there is no such a thing as a banned book, right? There is not a single banned book in the United States of America. Am I wrong?
Apparently, that's true. But it seems to me that when you're dealing with minors, there has to be age appropriate.
Yeah, but this is not banning.
But what I'm finding, correct. But what I'm finding, let me give you an example. So this book called This Book is Gay that actually teaches kids how to use adult sex apps, telling them to upload their picture while the app accesses their location. It says young adult on the spine of the book. So an adult is a 18-year-old. So you would think a young adult would be an 18 to 24-year-old.
Nope.
But no, that's not it, because the American Library Association, they keep taking the ages down. So then they said, first they said, no, it's actually teenagers starting at age 14. Then I'm hearing it's going down to age 11, which 11, they're not even, that's pre-adolescence.
Correct.
And they're calling 11-year-olds young adults. That doesn't make sense to me.
Doesn't make sense.
They keep changing. It's a way of deceiving because they keep changing definitions of words and concepts without telling anybody. So it's like you think you're communicating, but you're not, because you're changing a definition without telling me.
Yeah, so what I was saying is a banned book means you can't even buy it, even if you're a 30-year-old, right? So they're always saying don't ban the books because Hitler was banning books. This is not banning the books. It means parents do not want those books to be in the school libraries. That's it. Those books are not banned. If a kid wants to buy the book, he can go on to Amazon or to Barnes & Nobles and buy the book and read it. It just doesn't have to be accessible in a school library. That's it.
Correct.
So this is not banning the book.
Right. That's a very good point, Apollo. Very good point.
Yeah, so this one summary, it's oral sex, kids. Fuck you, asshole. F you. Blowjob. But you're nothing but a douchebag with a penis. Like
It's so crude and vulgar.
Like fucking condoms made from squirrel skin or something. What a dialogue.
I know.
Squirrel skin. The condoms made from squirrel skin. I got you.
I don't know if you want to go through all these, but
I believe I'm good.
I think you're good. We have a lot.
I saw you have this genderqueer book. So I have never had a person speaking about this book because this is, I want to say, the most vulgar book of all because it has lots of pictures. And I've seen a few of them online. Mm-hmm. So this book is recommended to kids as well, right?
Yeah, it's in some of our middle schools.
Middle school starts age what?
Well, most start with age 11 because a sixth grader can be 11 years old. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so 11 to 13 or 14-year-old. So here's one picture. Okay. Mm-hmm. Here's another picture.
This is about the blowjob, yeah. So guys, if you're not seeing, so this is basically, I want to say teenagers doing oral sex with each other. So do you think parents are not aware of this, or they just don't care, or they don't know what to do, how to remove those books from school libraries and curricula?
Think most parents are unaware that these kind of books are in there. I just think they're really trying to remove all taboos, social taboos, and say anything goes. Like all the boundaries are gone.
So I have a neighbor. So we were having this conversation, I want to say almost 2 years ago. And I was saying that those books, and I was showing him screenshots from the pages of those books are in the school, right? He's saying there's no way these books are going to be in my school or in my school district here in Woodland Hills in Los Angeles. What would you say to those parents?
I would say go to takebacktheclassroom.com and look up your school district and look up your school, and they will list the books that are in your school or school district. For the most part, they have Karen England, who you had on your podcast. She has a great resource to be able to find that. Or you can also go to the digital library, and if you have a list of books that you know are X-rated in content, you can go to that digital library and find them. Another way you can do it is to just search. You can search like LGBTQ books and see what shows up, and then try to go on the internet and find excerpts from those books, because there's been so much, but not all the obscene books or X-rated books are LGBTQ.
Correct.
They're also heterosexual, filled with detailed descriptions of incest, threesomes, teen prostitution, drug use, rape and human trafficking. So, and violence towards babies.
Do you think there is a single school that doesn't have at least one book of like this? The school that is public, not private, in California?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Do you know a few of them?
Yes.
What's the district?
Fountain Valley.
What is that?
It's in Orange County. They're very good with.
So
they have a conservative board that looks out and makes sure that.
So would you say
careful.
It's like 1%, 5% of all the schools?
I don't know. They've tried to get them in all the schools, but some boards, they try to do things quietly, or sometimes the librarians, they know that it goes against their own conscience as a parent, and so they'll just put them in the back.
Like a normal person.
They'll just take them off the shelves.
I got you. So
yeah.
Trump is flirting with this idea to dismantle the Department of Education, right? So he's been saying this, I want to say, for the last 100 days or something like that. So let's have this scenario where Trump dismantles the Department of Ed. What happens to America and what happens to California in specific? Is it better or worse for America, and is it better or worse for California?
Apollo, actually, I really don't know. I can't really answer that question. Because I just know that if for my district, if federal funding were to be removed, that would be about 5% of our budget. That would affect
5%.
Yeah, not
only
5%, and it would include special education funding, and it would include Title I funding, which is the funding that helps for districts that are considered lower socioeconomic districts. So yeah, it's not a huge amount.
So if the Department of Education is about to be dismantled, so the states are going to be on their own. Every state has a Department of Education too, right? California
Yes.
has one.
Yes.
But it's being governed by the federal Department of Education.
Federal doesn't necessarily govern the state, but it does have certain federal laws, such as for special education, we have IDEA, which is the Individual with Disability Education Act. We have FERPA laws that for privacy, student privacy, parent rights. And there's a lot of federal laws that impact state legislation. But it seems that as far as California, we've gone rogue, and we have really gone off the track as far as what you would consider, in my mind, American constitutionalism. We've really gone off the track. And I'm hoping that, I don't know if Trump's efforts can get California back on the track. I believe it's going to take, his efforts are greatly appreciated. I'm not saying they are not, because I'm very grateful. But it has to be both from on top and from down below in order for California to conform.
So basically 2026 governor election will determine where California goes for the next at least 4 years, since 2026.
Yes, and I think it's about really informing parents and it's very difficult to do because the mainstream media is pushing propaganda. I mean, I have given them so much information. I've given LA Times information. I've sent it to Washington Post. I mean, in my school district, they have 260 kids have already requested to change their gender starting in 4th grade, with or without parent knowledge, using identity support plans. Okay, but there isn't anybody who wants to cover that, except for more conservative news groups. And Daily Caller did write an article about it.
260 kids?
In my school district alone, over 800 in San Diego Unified have already changed their gender identity with or without parent knowledge.
So basically they're called by the other name?
Yes, they've asked to be something different than whatever gender they were born with.
So do you think this is the pinnacle? This is the apex of California? I mean, with all the madness, or we're still climbing to the top?
I think that Trump's efforts has caused a bit of a chilling effect, where there is a little bit of the pushback is effective because you have to understand with K through 12, the ones who are training our teachers are the universities. So it is impacting the universities when they lose funding for DEI education, because that impacts our teacher training programs that's filled with DEI and critical race theory.
But once a teacher gets his job or her job, they're teaching for what, 30 plus years?
They could, except right now we're in such decline of enrollment that, like my district, just laid off teachers that have been already teaching 12 years.
Why? Lack of money, of funding?
Because we are in decrease of enrollment, and they ask, well, they won't admit why we're in decrease of enrollment. They say it's because of high rent and because of lower birth rate, but nobody wants to admit that parents are leaving. Conservative parents are pulling their kids out because they don't want them indoctrinated with these things, and especially when they see all these ethnic studies, which are teaching white supremacy, colonization, and some would be more like anti-Semitism, very controversial subjects, and parents don't want that. They want, and especially in our public school system, we're seeing such a decline on reading standards and math proficiencies. It's like those two are going hand in hand. Like in my district, 70% of the kids are not meeting reading standards. 80% are not meeting math proficiency.
When you're saying they do not meet the reading standards, 70%, what do you mean? Give me an example that I can understand.
So we have tests that have benchmarks that show, okay, this would be considered, nationally would be considered in the average range for like a fourth grader. Okay, this would be meaning that you're reading on grade level. But if you go below the grade level, then you're not meeting that reading standard.
You mean the students don't know the words, they don't know how to read them, pronounce them, or what those words mean?
Correct. Whether it be a second grade, of course, second grade reading level or fifth grade reading level. For a fifth grade reading level, you're looking at not only a reading fluency, but also comprehension, how much you're understanding the text, where a second grade is just about, can you read that word? What does it say? With some vocabulary.
Or spell it. Spelling is in the test as well?
I don't think spelling is included. No.
So the decline is for a decade now, even more?
Yes, we're having a huge decline in our academic performances, and I think that needs to really be analyzed and looked at. I think it has a lot to do with we're so involved in all of these social causes that we're not focused on the fundamentals and the basics. I think also that there's a lot of wacky ways that they're teaching reading, and we need to get back to basic phonics and what works.
Well, at least they can read fuck you asshole, right?
Apparently.
This is very important.
Yes.
So do they lower the standards?
Yes, I feel like they call it equity grading, and I feel like equity grading is a lowering of the standards by basically saying, it's like grading on a bell curve, where they're saying, we don't want to give kids D's or F's because that lowers their self-esteem.
It lowers their self-esteem if they get a D or an F.
Yeah, it's kind of like the soccer team that gives everybody a trophy, and you don't do any, MVPs anymore because everybody is...
Participation trophies?
Yes. Everybody has a participation trophy.
What does teachers union say about all that? They're good with this? They're good with the proficiency levels?
Yeah, it's really interesting because, to look at the teachers union and see the type of laws that they support or oppose or say nothing about, I think is very telling on their own agenda. And I do not think the teachers union represents the majority of teachers. even though that could be changing with the new teachers that are being a byproduct of our universities, right? But I'll give you a few examples. So, I mean, we had a bill for the science of reading, but you'd think the teachers union would want to pass the science of reading bill that basically says scientifically this is proven that this is the best way to teach reading. And we're in a crisis situation with our reading scores right now.
We have to trust the science, right?
Yes.
We've been told since 2020, trust the science.
Right.
Okay.
But they
Not that science.
But they opposed it. They opposed it because, you know, how dare you even tell us we should have our academic freedom, okay? But yet they would pass in 2017 Senate Bill 239 that says to intentionally infect someone with HIV is no longer a felony. They supported that bill.
Why?
That's a good question. I think we should all be asking that question.
Repeat that once again.
To intentionally infect someone with HIV is no longer a felony.
That was a Senate bill.
Yes.
And it was passed.
Yes.
And signed by a governor.
And supported by the teachers union.
What does the teacher union have to do in common with HIV?
That's a very good question. And I think teachers...
Why do they get involved in the first place? It's not your business. It has nothing to do with education.
Well, apparently it must, according to the people on the top. And then Senate Bill 1414 that recently passed was saying that to sell or buy kids for sex should be a felony. You would think the teachers union would support that, right?
Opposed.
If they did nothing. They were silent on it. And yet their mission statement says they want safe schools for all students. They should have supported that bill. And that's a red flag. In 2019, they supported Senate Bill 179 that said the word non-binary is a third gender in the state of California. But that law is actually, the way it's written, is deceptive because the word non-binary does not mean one single gender. If you look at the California Department of Ed definition of non-binary, there's 11 words to describe non-binary. 11 genders. So it was very deceptive to even say non-binary is one gender. That would be like saying Baskin Robbins is one ice cream flavor. It can be actually infinite amount. It can be infinite amount. In fact, I'll show you one of the books for preschoolers that explains that. It's called They, She, He, Me, Free to Be. And it's talking about pronouns. So I'll look at some non-binary people that it gives you. It shows, here's the pronouns for people who use the pronoun of Z or tree. Okay, because they're not male or female, there's something else. I don't know what something else is.
Yeah, I remember you showed this book the first time.
Oh, okay, did I show this page too then?
No. I want to say no.
Okay, well, this one tells kids, it says, you can change your pronouns from he to she or from she to he, talking about gender fluidity. You can use new ones like Z or create your own like tree. Some people use they, which is the perfect way. There are many more pronouns waiting to be discovered and used. People are creating new pronouns all the time.
But do they know that the authors, do they know that the word tree already exists? It's like a plant, a big one. You can be a tree.
Yeah, it makes me wonder.
But if I call them a tool, they're going to get insulted, right? You can be a tree, but not a tool. Why not?
Right.
Maybe that's gender.
Well, I brought up the point. I said, well, does that mean if a child identifies as a bird, that we should affirm it? Because you were saying that we should affirm all identities. And I said, because if you do, that means that child could think that they can go on the top of a 5-story building and jump because their arms are wings.
Correct.
But they will jump to their death.
What was their answer?
Nothing. I mean, one of the mental health crisis hotlines, because we have a lot of them, one was teenline.org. And so between the hours of 6 to 9, it says teens are counseling teens. So I texted, the blind leading the blind. Okay. Really, the blind leading the blind. So I texted it, and I wanted to see what they might advised to me. And I said, I really believe that and I went into detail that I'm a vampire cat. And
Vampire
why?
cat.
Yes. And they said, well, you should be your authentic self. Don't be ashamed of who you are. This is crazy. I mean, the definition of psychosis is to have thoughts and behaviors that don't align to external reality. And they're saying we have a mental crisis going on, but I believe they're the contributors of our mental crises. Because when you're affirming things that are not in external reality, you are promoting psychoses.
But in 10 to 15 to 20 years, no one's going to hire those vampire cats because they're idiots. If they say, what gender, right? You see your resume, gender, a vampire, a tree, a Z. I will never hire a tree or a Z. I need a male or a female. They're going to be jobless.
Well, I can give you my hypothesis. And I can't remember if I said this before. But in 2019, I went to the California School Board Association conference right before the COVID lockdown. And they had the keynote speaker was Michio Kaku. Did I talk about this?
I believe you've mentioned something, but please repeat it because I don't remember.
So Michio Kaku wrote this book. And in that conference, there was 5,000 school board members throughout California. And he had the book signing called The Future of Humanity, Our Destiny in the Universe. And when I looked through and I read this during the COVID lockdown, and it has an entire chapter about transhumanism. So it talks about these different identities, okay? Transhumanism and technology. And it talks about how nanotechnology can edit our genomes, right? And our, what's the word? Genes. It's like gene therapy. And it can allow us to become whatever we want to be. It's like we can co-create. We can start creating ourselves in the way we perceive ourselves to be. So I know this sounds really out of the box, and all I'm saying is the only reason I bring it up is because why did they have him come as for all of the school board members in the state of California, why was he our keynote speaker? And even though he was entertaining and his speech kind of sounded like the Jetsons on steroids, we do know that our society is moving very fast in the area of technology. And I think some of these things that we look at and it sounds so outlandish, there's a reason for it. And I think they're moving towards something we've never seen before. He calls it Humanity 2.0, where we're going to be able to create our own person. And to me, as a person of faith, that really goes against our Creator. It's like giving God the finger, in my opinion. And it goes against the Declaration of Independence, because the Declaration of Independence says we are endowed by our Creator with inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And if we deny our Creator, then really we're going to deny our inalienable rights.
But they will define who's the creator. They're going to tell you that this creator that is mentioned in the Declaration of Independence is not what you think.
That's very well could be. But I think this whole sex assigned at birth is part of the deception, because I say, well, who assigned? Who are you? No human assigned my sex. God, my Creator, assigned my sex before I was born, okay?
I knew you before I formed you in the mother's womb.
Absolutely. So I think this whole sex assigned at birth, when did that come into being? I'd like to know who came up with that and where did it start showing up everywhere? I don't want to accept it.
But what do you think is their end goal? So if they want to turn people into, let's say, robots or very confused persons, I'm confused. I don't know who I am, whether I'm male, female, or any other 90 plus genders. But I still have to be like a battery. I have to be like an energy source for them to work, to pay taxes, and to support their businesses. But if I'm confused, I can't even work because I'm unstable. Do they want to hook me up with the medicine so I could swallow pills and then just do the job that they want?
I don't know exactly. I know that it's always talking out of two sides of your mouth. It's kind of like what I see a pattern of is they create the problem and then they have a solution. So it makes it look very philanthropic. So if you're creating a mental health crisis, then, but look, now we have the solution, which could be maybe a Neuralink in the brain. So now you don't have a mental health problem anymore because we've solved the problem. I'm just giving you an example, and I don't know. I'm not claiming to be an expert in this area. I'm just saying that I've seen over and over how they seem to create a problem and then bring about the solution that they want in order to control the situation. And when I use the word they, who am I talking about? I don't know. The World Health Organization, United Nations. It just seems like there is a definite organized effort, because I look at the Center of Disease Control. The Center of Disease Control has the word non-binary in there. They even have normalized this acronym called YMSM, which is young men having sex with men. They've literally destigmatized that. They said for the sake of young men getting help for HIV. So we need to destigmatize that. So I just see that in order to, I just want to show you one more thing, because Michio Kaku, his very next book after that was called The God Creation.
Equation.
I'm sorry, The God Equation. And it's talking about how religion, is not progressive, basically. How religion can get in the way of human progress. So
the religion pushed the human progress, Christianity in specific. If not Christianity, we would be, I want to say, in caves, killing each other, basically, for food or for women.
But yet, what's happening now is I'm seeing it even in our ethnic studies, because white supremacy and Christianity is equated, and it's seen as being oppressors and colonizers, meaning we push our values on others. So, heaven forbid, missionaries went into African tribes and, spoke about cannibalism not being in their best interest, because we're all created in God's image, right? So, but if you break down all the norms, then I guess cannibalism is okay because it's a means to an end. It's like if we have all, what do you call it? Relevant ethics? No. Relativity?
Mm-hmm.
Then anything can go. Anything goes.
They're equating Christianity to white supremacy. Have they ever been to, let's say, Ethiopia? Lots of black Africans that are Christians and they're white supremacists as well?
That's a great question. And I do ask that question because in my school district, we have this thing called the land acknowledgement that is read after the Pledge of Allegiance. And it's basically, I should have brought a copy with me so I could have read it to you. And you can pull it up probably if you want. But it's basically saying that we live on indigenous people's land that has been colonized, taken over those who tried to commit genocide. And it's really a very heavy-duty, kind of a condemnation, guilt-ridden statement. And I'm not saying that, we had Native Americans here, and I'm not saying that, there were wars going on, but, and all of those things is part of history. But I mean, Native Americans did kill each other too, and they weren't just peace-loving, they did scalp their
enemies.
Their enemies. So I just think there's this narrative that's being put out there.
But this is part of history. You can't change the past, right? So the people that are saying that you live on a stolen land, do they leave? Or they still stay here?
That's a good question, because I bring that up. Well, actually, I don't bring it up, but we've had immigrants come and speak at our board meetings because our president, he won't pledge the flag because he believes our nation is systemically racist. So yet he
doesn't pledge the U.S. flag?
Right. Yet he promotes, sanctuary districts and sanctuary cities to protect the immigrants from ICE raids or ICE invasions from what Trump, he says, might do to them through deportations, and that they should know their rights, which, of course, they should know their rights. But what I'm saying is he makes it like it just doesn't make sense, because he's trying to protect illegal immigrants to be able to stay in our country, yet he's calling our country very evil and racist. So my question is, if you think this is such an oppressive place to live, then why do you want them to stay here?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be in their best interest to go back to their land of origin? I mean, if this is such a terrible place to live?
Where do you think this self-hatred comes from? So he's a young guy, 24 years old, and he hates America. Where do you think this comes from? From universities, colleges?
Yes, I do. Universities and colleges, yes.
But this wasn't, I think, let's say 20 years ago, right? So something has changed. The curriculum of a college changed, so they started teaching their students that you have to hate America, hate your own country where you were born, or your even 5th to 6th generation of ancestors were born.
I think it's kind of like yeast. It grows. So you probably had some that were radical in the universities, and then it just started snowballing, because if you just allow it, then it can continue and continue. And young people are idealistic, and they want to clutch on to a cause, and so, and especially something that, let's fight injustice. Let's fight for equality. And it all sounds really great, from the outside.
Who's not equal right now in America? Do you know anyone who's not equal, who doesn't have equal rights?
Well, what they do is usually bring up history.
Oh,
and,
history.
Yes,
Okay.
and show how America, with segregation, with slavery, with, different ways that certain groups were treated terribly.
Facts. Horrible stuff.
Right,
In
exactly.
the past.
In the past, yes, but it's almost like they want to bring it up and pretend as though we're still that bad, and maybe punish. It's almost a retribution.
So segregation is bad, according to them, right? But if you didn't take the vax in 2020 to 2022, you have to be segregated as well. You couldn't get into a cafe or a restaurant or even to the groceries.
Very good point. In fact, I was on a state delegate for the teachers union, and when the National Educators Association has their conference every July 4th, and they move it to different places in the nation. And so I was able to go as a representative to my district. But because I didn't have the vaccination, they wouldn't allow me to go. I had to attend online at home. Talk about being treated as a second-class citizen.
Correct.
Yeah.
So teachers union, you've been a teacher since 1990s.
Yes.
You've been a teachers union member?
Yes.
What did you see? What did you experience that was like, what is that all about?
Yeah, actually, I never thought anything about it, because, when you become a teacher, you just automatically join the union, and then you just think, wow, they're really doing a great job in helping me get a higher salary, better benefits. If I run into a disgruntle or a conflict with my administrator, they can be there to help, support you and advocate for you. And so I thought the teachers union was really great. But I started hearing a little bit about the teachers union, and I didn't think I really believed it. And so in 2015, I thought, I've been a teacher since 1990, and maybe I should start going to some conferences and seeing what it's all about. And so I just went online and saw what the names of their conferences were. And I found that even the names of the conferences surprised me, because it was like human rights, social justice, LGBTQ. There wasn't much. Yeah, they did have like good teacher conference, one on special education, but it wasn't like they were really focused on academics and academic achievement. So I thought, well,
Because you're so proficient. The students are so proficient in everything, in math,
right.
reading,
right.
checked.
Right. So I thought, well, I'll go to the LGBTQ one because it's the next one. And my local union actually paid for everything. They paid for my plane, my hotel. And let me tell you, these conferences are first class. You get like a royal king and queen treatment, okay? beautiful first-class
And you paid for
hotels.
it.
Right. So that's why I tell teachers, you need to go to these conferences. You know, you go for free. If, let's say, they'll let you go for free your first 2 times, and then you have to pay. But anyway, so when I
Like
went...
drug dealers. You loved it, right? We treat
Well,
you well.
actually, that you get to go for discounts if you are part of the leadership team in some way. You have to contribute to being like a site representative or something within their committees. Then you can have discounts to go to their conferences.
It's like an MLM.
Yeah, there you go. So anyways, when I went, Eric Hines was the president at the time for the California Teachers Association. And his keynote speech, I heard him say that he mentioned a Supreme Court case, the Friedrichs versus CTA, and he called the plaintiffs a spawn of Satan. And like, I couldn't even believe I just heard that. So I went to my hotel room, and I'm part of the Christian Educators Association. I called the president and I said, like, "What? Do you know anything about this court case?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, who are the plaintiffs?"
Who's
and he
this
said,
one?
"Yeah." He said, "Well, we are one of the plaintiffs, the Christian Educators Association." I said, "What? We were just called the spawn of Satan by the president." And he said, "Oh my gosh," he said, "the head plaintiff is Rebecca Friedrich. And you need to call her." So I did. I called her. I told her. And she said, "Yeah, I'm just trying to make it to where unions won't be, you don't have to be a union member. You can have a choice." And she said, "Well, maybe you should speak at the Supreme Court case." And that made me really nervous. But anyways, it didn't end up happening. But
How dared she to free the slaves? This whole
Right.
country is about freedom. Freedom to choose. No, you have to pay. You have to be a member of CTA or other States Teachers Association if you're a teacher.
And-
That's enslavement.
Right. And I mean, that one didn't go through, but Janice did go through where teachers could have a choice. But that very day that the Supreme Court voted on it, Newsom signed a bill. I can't remember the number of the bill off the top of my head, but saying that employers cannot inform teachers that they have a choice. That information can only come through the union.
If you know, you know.
I mean, that to me, in and of itself, is a violation of my rights as an employee. Because you're saying that my employer cannot inform me of my rights, and it has to come through my union, who has a conflict of interest in informing me. Right? And then they also passed another law saying that school districts must relinquish all data, personal data of a new employee, such as their cell number, their address, and their personal email address. They must relinquish that information to the union. That's a privacy violation.
Yeah, I have to check whether I want my information to be shared or not.
They don't even ask us. It's a law that they passed. So how is the union looking out for our rights as employees, for our best interest? They're not. It's very one-sided.
It's basically slavery. You have no choice.
Well, we do have a choice now. I mean, Janice, when that Supreme
Yeah.
Court case was passed, yes, we do have a choice. It's just
But
that,
with regards to information,
but it's hard. A lot of teachers still don't know that they have a choice because the unions, they're not very forthright in that information. And then even if you do decide to not be a part of it, sometimes because it's an automatic withdrawal from your check, you have to be very diligent to look at your pay stub to make sure that they have removed you, because they might just say, "Oh, we forgot." And that's happened.
so you've been teaching for 30 years. You've been a part of a teachers association, a teachers union. Whose kids are our kids? If I would ask you, what would you say? States, schools, school districts, parents' kids? Whose kids?
Well, I believe it's the parents. They
No.
belong to the parents. But according to the teachers union, I don't think in their actions, that's not what they're showing in their actions, because we have state conferences and we vote on business items, and then those business items move into law. So in 2020, the California Teachers Association voted on a business item saying that kids should have access to puberty blockers or hormone therapy without
Out.
parent knowledge or consent. and it didn't have an age. There was no age factor, and it didn't matter if the kid had autism or was in special education. There was no exceptions to that rule. So I believe that's where they're going. And when they passed that new business item, it just made me so sick that that's when I decided to remove myself and no longer become a member of the union. So I left the union in 2020 for a couple years. But then I thought, by me leaving the union, it's really removing my voice to make a difference. So I rejoined the union and tried to be a voice because I don't like my profession being hijacked. I feel like they're using the good reputation of teachers to do things that are harming kids and harming families and harming America. And so I was trying to inform teachers, my colleagues. And one way I did it is I created a paper with facts, such as those bills that I told you about, the HIV and those facts. And I put those facts on there and then made a QR code to show the document, the primary document. And then I started handing them out at one of the teachers' conferences. And
you got rogue.
Right. And they came to me and said, this hasn't been authorized. I said, these are just facts. What are we trying to hide? These are our members. Don't you think the members should know what laws you support or oppose?
Laws, yeah, not just speculation.
Yeah.
But AB, SB.
These are laws. Don't you think these teachers should know? And basically, they ended up suspending me. Yeah. They suspended me and said I could not go to a conference for another 6 months because of that.
And if you do it after 6 months, you're gonna if you violate the laws, the rules, you're gonna be suspended for a year, then for 2 years, then for life.
I have no idea, but basically,
that's mafia style.
It totally is. And they have all these workshops where it always says, "Oh, we want teachers to be the voice, to be workshop presenters." So
not your voice.
I have literally filled out probably at least 15 applications to be a workshop presenter on things that I know a lot about. And I have facts, but I am always denied. They always send me an email that says, we're sorry, but we have too many applicants. And then maybe a week later, I'll get another same email asking for applications. It's just a lie. It's a lie. They just don't want anybody that doesn't swim their direction to have a voice.
So, California Teachers Association, there is a president. Who's the president of CTA right now? Do you know?
David Goldberg.
Is he a teacher? Former teacher?
Former teacher.
Okay, so underneath him, there is a board?
Yes.
How many members?
I think 5.
Are all of those teachers as well?
Former teachers. I mean, once
so
they
at least
work...
they were teachers?
Yes.
Not like the president of your school board?
Some might be lawyers. I mean, they have a lot of people that do work for them that are not teachers, that work for the CTA, that are like lobbyists, lawyers, marketers, that kind of thing. Yeah.
And the president of your school board is, he has a profession? He's not a teacher, right?
She was a teacher, and now she's a full-time...
No, the guy, the 24-year-old?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant the president of my local union.
No.
No, the president of... He was not a teacher before, no. He's kind of a full-time politician.
Activist.
Yes, I would say, yes.
So what parents still do not know that they have to know?
Parents really need to know the laws that are changing and the policies that are changing and the definitions that are changing.
Where can they get this info? BrendaForKids.com?
Well, let me give you an example. So we have this policy in my school district, and it's called Transgender, Non-Binary, and Gender Non-Conforming Students. And it talks about how we as personnel have to use identity support plans, that if a child any age wants to change his or her gender, that we have to affirm whatever name or pronoun they want to use after they read some of these books that are very confusing. And if they say, oh, don't tell my parents won't go for this, so please don't tell my parents,
okay,
then we can't tell their parents. And so it says here that school personnel should not discuss information that may disclose a student's gender nonconforming status to others, including parents, unless the student has authorized the disclosure. So we're talking about a 5-year-old. It can be any age child.
So by default, do not disclose.
You cannot disclose unless the child says it's okay.
So it's not even vice versa. If the student says, please do not disclose, then you do not disclose. Now it's by default, you don't disclose unless a child says, please, you can do it. You can disclose. You can talk about this with my parents.
Correct.
So let's say a 10-year-old Johnny is going to school and now he says he's Mary. So does his name change in the register in the system of a school? And his grades are now not Johnny's but Mary's?
Yes, they can change like the roster, the classroom roster. It's called Aries. And in fact, I did a public records request, and Anaheim School District showed me exactly how they do it. And I didn't bring it with me, but I can send it to you. But they show how they said, and how to hide the information from parents. They have a button that actually shows how to hide it. It's crazy. And so they can change the class rosters, they can change their student ID card, their library card, to have whatever that student wants, preferable name or preferable pronouns.
Student ID.
Yes.
So Johnny has a student ID that says Mary.
Yes.
So if let's say, after I graduate, I have to take the SAT, right? The test. Mm-hmm. So
if you want to, yeah.
Yeah, I come in, I have my passport or my ID. It says Johnny. But my student ID says Mary.
Well,
so what do they refer to? A passport or student ID?
There's a difference between legal documents and informal documents. So a class roster, the school cannot change the legal documents, such as a birth certificate. Okay, such as a passport.
So according to school documents, there isn't even a student called Johnny. There is only Mary, right? If I prefer my name to be changed.
Well, it will still have the birth name in the cum.
So it means shit that you want to be called Mary, right? Because you're Johnny.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, what they're doing is they are affirming that child's identity, whatever that child wants to be, in the school without the parent knowing, and trying to, whatever way, whether it be on the class rosters, on the lunch card, on the student ID card, in the school yearbook, those are all unofficial documents. Okay,
they're not. There's a bearded Mary in the school yearbook, graduation book.
Well, I guess so. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. So that's what's going on.
I hope I didn't insult anybody.
But even when it comes to athletics, I mean, that's a big issue right now with CIF, because CIF for, athletics, they are holding to all these very woke policies. So right now we have some pushback going on with J. Sarah Catholic School, Orange Lutheran School, Cream Lutheran School, I think Chino Hills and Temecula and Redding public school districts are pushing back on CIF, saying, no, we don't want to put girls in harm's way when it comes to competing against biological males. So that's going on right now. But as far as that's it. The rest of the school districts that I'm aware of, they're not fighting against it that I know of yet.
So something's happening right now in Huntington Beach, right? They're about to vote.
Yes, Huntington Beach, their mayor and their city council is working on trying to get obscene books out of the children's section of their public library.
Even a mayor can do that. So who can?
They're taking it to a vote. It's called Prop A and B, I think, but yes. I don't know if they voted yet. I'm not sure.
Okay, so what else our parents are not still aware of?
Well, I mean, I think parents, like in my school district, we have all of these posters stickers, counselor cards. It says "We Care," and it has like their hearts, but one is the transgender colors, one is the LGBT colors, one is a butterfly, and one is just a red heart, and it's all "We Care." We have T-shirts with this. We have posters, cards,
It's
everything.
About what? It's about the.
It's called "We Care." It's all about like suicide prevention and mental health hotlines and help resources. But I just think it's interesting that we have it all in the. I don't know if a lot of parents know, like immigrant parents who don't speak English. I'm not sure if they really understand. They know what the heart is, but I don't know if they know what the transgender colors are and what these hearts actually mean.
Really? They're not that aware of.
I've been told different things, and I'm still asking myself, what is the heart with the butterfly on it? I've been told it means immigrants, but I'm not sure what that means. Because when you think of a butterfly, it means a butterfly goes from a caterpillar to a butterfly. So there is like, in Christianity, we call that being born again, a transformation, right?
Metamorphosis.
Metamorphosis. And so when they're showing this butterfly on a heart, to me, and I could be totally wrong, I kind of wonder if it's going towards transhumanism.
Ooh, that's a good point.
I am wondering if it is, because as part of our non-discrimination policy, we have genetic information has been added as a classified characteristic of protection.
How does it look like, the genetic information?
It just says you will not be discriminated based on race, marital status, religion, age, genetic information, gender identity, sexual orientation.
Yeah, but genetic information is what? Who are your parents?
Well, I don't
ethnicity?
remember genetic information ever being in the non-discrimination policies in the past. So why does it have genetic information on there? Since when? I mean, I'm thinking about all the years that I've been in public education, either as a child or as a teacher. When have they ever asked me about my genetic information? And I don't understand how that comes into play, unless it could come into play in the future with transhumanism, because what they tend to do is always set the table ahead of time, way ahead of time, so that when we ever question it, because nobody's actually looking, or it's going over our head, and they'll say, "Oh no, that's been in there for so long." Well,
so it means
nobody
good.
questioned it. Yeah, I think we need to question it, which is basically being part biological and part something else.
Neuralink. Well,
You always see these pictures with the half face, right? The half face. You're half this and you're half that. And those kind of things make me wonder.
So the whole premise of Neuralink is the blind will see, the paralyzed will walk, and etc. Right? It's a good initiative.
Right.
I would say, yeah, go for it. Of course,
Sure.
100%.
Absolutely.
Deaf would hear, but
Mute can speak.
yes, but if you're blind and with the help of a chip in your head you can see, can they project what you see?
That's a
Because
good
if
question.
they can, I believe this is an MK Ultra 2.0. Because you
mean,
would
yeah.
have to convince someone, like say in the 60s to 70s, with the help of a drug, to convince them to do something atrocious. But now you can just project the reality into their eyes. You
That's
don't even have to convince. You just look what is happening. Do it.
It could
Riot.
definitely, when you think about artificial intelligence and where that could go with Neuralinks and things like that, I mean, how much will be who's programming, what people's thoughts are and behaviors, or is it authentically that person, or is it something else?
So I've graduated school in 2007, so it's almost 20 years now, right? So I have no idea what people or students are doing right now at school. So can you use a cell phone at school?
They passed a law that you're not supposed to.
Not supposed to.
Right, in school. So that looks differently in different classrooms, but they're supposed to turn it in. And what I've seen is like they'll turn it in and put it in a little pocket and then get it on their way out.
So do students use right now AI to write articles, to do homework, to...
Well, I mean, Trump just passed an executive order about that, saying AI should be used K through 12. So I don't know what exactly.
Should not be used.
Should be. Yes.
Should be.
Yes, should be used.
In what form? And for
Well,
what?
I don't know exactly what that looks like. Because I don't know how kids so young can use AI because I can, like they can maybe there's going to be audio commands, probably, where they don't have to know how to necessarily read or write yet, maybe to create a picture or something they want. I don't know. But I do know that they say that AI is totally unbiased, but I have seen in my own experience that it's got built-in algorithms. In fact, with ChatGPT, I tried to ask it to translate a speech for me, and it said it went against community standards. So there's absolutely built-in algorithms.
Was that Hitler's speech?
No, it was
Worse, Sonia Shaw's.
right. It was just talking about, trying to think what it was, but it was talking about all these different genders and how people want their rights and they want to be informed about all these many genders, and that goes against their religious beliefs, kind of what we already talked about, that they believe God created us male or female, and that seemed to go against the algorithm.
Oh yeah, so community schools. I heard the first time I heard this term was from Sonia, and she was telling me that the state is building those community schools to get kids to even live in those buildings or the buildings that are near the school, so they can kind of take the kids out of families and to indoctrinate them even more. So was she right in what this community school is all about?
That's possible. I don't know about that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Community schools is basically saying that school should be the hub for everything. It's kind of like the one-stop service center. So we have the dentist coming to the school. We have the of course, all the nutritional services. You get breakfast, lunch, and after-school snacks for after-school care, kind of like they call it supper. Mm-hmm. Then you get mental health, counseling, telehealth, which don't worry, you don't have to pull your kid out to go to the doctors. Now you can just have the child go to the nurse's office, and it's called Hazel Health at my school district, where the parents just sign when their kids get into school, like the packet, mm-hmm. and that includes signing that they can have telehealth so they don't have to miss school. And they can.
What's telehealth? What does it mean?
Telehealth means you're seeing a doctor online, mm-hmm. and that doctor can prescribe medication. But to me, that's very to be seeing a doctor without a parent there, and especially since we've got this puberty blocker, hormone therapy,
ADHD,
and all this stuff. I just think that's dangerous to bypass the parent in that process, so that their reasoning is so that kids won't miss school. In other words, we won't lose the attendance money for that child if they have to go to a doctor's appointment. So that saves us money. But yeah, the community school I call it a bowl of spaghetti, because you've got all these outside organizations now that are getting grants, that are working with the schools. And now, how do parents even know who has access to their kids anymore? We have so many outside agencies. It's not just the teacher and the school personnel. Now we've got all these outside agencies that have access to their kids. Before school, after school, during school, and through Zoom.
Not agencies, let's call it like it is, companies, corporations that want to benefit from this, right?
Well, they collect their data as well. Whenever they say, it's a no-cost agency, it's not any cost to the district.
Nothing is free.
Nothing is free, and they are getting data on these kids. So, yeah.
How do you think they can use the data?
I don't know, but Google loves having data.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
Because I'm having this letters from all other banks in my mail every week, I want to say.
Yeah, data helps them make decisions, helps them know how to target things, and helps them know how to change minds, persuade, market, influence.
So on the paper, community schools look pretty good, right? So, for instance, you can have meals, snacks, supper, dentist, and etc. Until they want to profit from it. If the company's biggest, their mission is to make more profit, they obviously going to get you on Ritalin or Adderall or painkillers or this, and that. So if the doctor is going to prescribe, even just by watching you on the screen, that you need those medicine, they will do it. So on paper, community schools can look pretty good thing, but I believe we don't see the behind the scenes, the plan behind it.
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, one of the agencies that works with our school district is called Neutral Ground. And one of the counselors right out of college, I asked her, I said, so how are you trained to define gender identity? Do you believe it's a choice? And she said, yes, we're trained that it's a choice. And I said, so what do you do if a 5-year-old says he wants to be both genders and go by the pronoun of tree? She says, I have to affirm it.
So I'm an expert as well. I just affirm it.
Yeah, there you go. And I mean, that's how they're trained. But we're not telling parents that these outside agencies are being trained that way. We need to tell parents this.
Do you think America is looking up to other countries? Like, for instance, China, Japan, Russia, Germany, France, UK?
I think America is actually leading the charge on this because, we have something called Sexual Education Information of the United States, SECUS, Sexual Information Education of the United States, yeah. And they are promoting these little videos through many different, they work with Planned Parenthood, Advocates for Youth, all of these different agencies. And they have these little videos called Amaze. And they're sending these little videos not only throughout the United States, but they're sending them out throughout the world in many, many languages. And I've watched many of these videos teaching kids that they can choose their gender based on their feelings. And it just, everything, the way they're presenting it to a child, it just sounds so factual and a matter of fact. Like, why would you even question this? This is just science the way it is.
So the reason I asked you is I believe other cultures have a few things that are better in their countries than in America. For instance, Italian food is way more healthier and tasty than American food, right? So maybe you should look into the Italy and their cuisine and learn from them. Maybe from China you can learn something else, technology from this, maybe safety from Dubai, UAE, etc. But if you think that you're the top of the world, you're the pinnacle, you're the apex, if America thinks this way, you don't have to learn anything from other countries or from other cultures. So if, let's say, we look into China and their students' proficiency levels, right? If they are very profound, if the levels are high, maybe you could learn from Chinese, from their school systems, how do they teach their kids so they reach the levels of reading, writing, and maths. But you don't do that as far as I know and as far as I understand, right? You don't care what Chinese do with their kids or Japanese with their respect. Because the respect that Japanese have in their culture is instilled in the culture. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. I mean, we always talk about being global citizens and preparing them for the global world, right? But yet, yeah, I wonder about that. Go ahead.
Because, for instance, I've never been to Russia, but I know that from the videos, and Tucker told that on his podcast, that once he got into Moscow's metro, underground subway, he was amazed. It's clean and safe. So if this huge city, what I want to say, 5 to 10 million people population can have safe and clean subway, it means New York or Chicago can have too. Mm-hmm. Learn from the Russians. Ask them, what exactly do you do? So, for instance, if you have Dubai and it's so safe in Dubai, you can leave your Rolex on your hood of the car. You can leave it for 10 minutes. You can grab a coffee. You can come back, and the Rolex is going to stay on the hood, on the trunk. So maybe you should learn from Dubai, from UAE. How do you implement this kind of laws or this kind of a culture? How can you shift the cultures to make America better? Because in America, not everything is the best that it is in the world. Definitely not. learn. If you say that we're now global, the whole world is global, right? Languages, cultures, but you don't learn from others. You just want others to implement what you have in America, and that you want to implement the worst of it. That's why I'm so concerned about California, because I live here. I'm concerned of California because as California goes, the US goes. But as US goes, Europe goes, and my little country, home country, Lithuania, goes as well. You go bananas here, in 20 years, Lithuania goes banana there as well. But I care about my homies, about my Lithuanians too. So please don't go bananas. Learn from other countries.
Right. Good points. Yes. I thought it was interesting that during COVID lockdown, we all had to, they were just buying cases and cases of the masks for the kids. And the masks were all made in China. I thought that was interesting. To me, I'm like, why would we take a product and buy it from China, a communist country? Why are we so trusting as Americans? And it was interesting that if you can even go into CVS and look at these boxes that are made in China, these child masks that they were wearing in the schools for a very long time, and it has a little kid on it winking. I'm like, yeah, we've been hoodwinked. To me, I'm just like, I think sometimes we're way too trusting to especially countries that aren't very honest.
So what's next? Because the last time we spoke, you got elected as a school board member. Trump is the president right now. The next time we meet, what's going to happen? We're going to have a new governor in 2026. You hopeful? You're hopeless for California?
I have hope for California. Otherwise, I wouldn't have run for school board and put it all out there. When I did win, I had to take a really big pay cut of about a third of what I made before.
Oh, wow.
And I had to retire immediately, which meant we were giving out incentives for early retirement because of the cuts. So we wanted people to retire so they wouldn't be laid off. And I couldn't benefit from the retirement golden handshake because I wasn't able to finish my contract through June. I had to stop immediately in December. So that was for me worth about $250,000. But what I'm saying is that if I didn't believe that there's hope for our state, I would have never made that sacrifice personally, and my husband and I together. We do believe there's hope for the state. It's a matter of people like you standing up and telling people, here, this is what's going on. You might not hear it from LA Times or from the mainstream media, but we're going to do our own work to get the word out and tell people the truth.
How can parents across California help you or help other Californians to not go bananas?
Well, they can definitely get informed by my website. It's BrendaForKids.com, the number 4, BrendaForKids.com. Also, I have one, InterfaithForKids.com with the number 4 as well. And to inform their churches and start speaking in board meetings, start asking for accountability, and start really looking at Ed Code 51101. I think that's a key, which says they are mandated to inform parents. And we can at least start there where we must be informed, because you can't be activated unless you first know what's going on. And I'm really hoping, I'm grateful for people like you, because I'm not super great with all of the social media tech stuff. And so people like you help get these little sparks of truth, get the wind behind it so it turns into an inferno. And that's what I'm hoping happens. I think it's starting to turn. Otherwise, Trump wouldn't have won, right?
Yeah, but he didn't win here in California. California is still very blue.
True, but it did make some shifts.
Mm-hmm. So, do you personally know a few liberal people that do not agree with the whole agenda?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think that they've gone too far. And most Democrats that I talk to don't agree with biological males competing against female girls. That is like, that's not progressive. I mean, we're literally going backwards as far as women's rights.
Okay, so even if even Democrats do not agree with, so who does? Why is still a thing in California?
But yet what they do is they say, yeah, but it's such a minute portion of people, transgender. But they don't understand that okay, it might be small now, but it's growing quickly. It's especially growing quickly when we're teaching kindergartners that their gender can change like the weather based on their feelings. And if you don't think that's a big deal, I mean, that's brainwashing, that's indoctrination. So if we don't deal with this and start squelching it now, then it's going to be impossible to do later on, right?
What do women activist groups, feminists do? Do they do anything at all with this issue when biological male play against females?
I mean, I'm definitely seeing even the lesbians upset about this because a lot of them are athletes. And they're like, wow, you're going to rip off my hard work and hard-earned trophy by a biological male? So there's a lot of lesbians that are very against this whole gender-bending movement.
What about feminists?
I mean, I don't know.
But they're active on other issues, but not on this one. It's like the major issue for a woman.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of feminists are also against this because a lot of them are saying, wow, you are causing maybe somebody who, if they believe that you were born gay, then they're saying you are transing gay girls or gay boys. You're transing them. That's their argument. It's different mindsets.
But trans is not an orientation. LGB is an orientation.
See, if you believe that, okay, somebody's born gay, and yet, let's say, like, I'm not gay, but I will say that as a child, I was a tomboy, and I looked and acted like a boy as before puberty. Okay, so much so that I got kicked out of the girls' bathrooms because they thought I was a boy. Yeah, so I would be mistaken as a boy a lot as a young girl. And so, but if I was raised in this climate, I would have definitely thought that I was a boy trapped in a girl's body. I would have thought that, But my parents were both Christians and they didn't make a big deal about it. They just let me go through that stage. And when I hit puberty, I just grew out of it naturally. I grew, and stats show that like 98% do grow out of it, through puberty. But when we catch them before they ever get to puberty and make them doubt their gender or their sexual, their sex that they were born with, then it can create a lot of havoc. And if I would have been born in this day and age, I probably would have been going on puberty blockers, and my greatest joy in life has been being a mother and a grandmother, and I would have never had that.
Correct. Brenda, I believe we've covered everything that we wanted to cover.
I think so, yeah.
God bless you.
Thank you so much for what you're doing.
I wish you well. I wish you luck with the new job that you have.
Thank you.
I'm still shocked at this president that you have, 24-year-old. Like, go watch Thunderbolts, the new Avengers, Spider-Man, like 24-year-old. What do you know about teaching or kids or anything to do with school? But okay, if he's the president, all right. I wish you well as well, bro. God bless you.
Thank you, Paolo.